There is no doubt that the millennial generation is changing the game when it comes to the travel industry. And for women in particular, travel has long been considered one of those transformational experiences when women travelers aren't being considered completely irrational and crazy. Hey everyone, it's Emily here with Bossed Up, and as we gear up for the summer season ahead, I wanted to cover in today's video some of the best tips for traveling with your gal pals. But the more I looked into this topic, the more I realized that the whole concept of women and travel can be a really controversial and polarized discussion. First, there's the whole Eat, Pray, Love camp. When the author Elizabeth Gilbert set out to chronicle her across-the-globe travels to rediscover herself, following a rocky midlife crisis, she spawned an entirely new trope in literature and film, which shows up in the Sex and the City movie when Carrie Bradshaw takes her gal pals on her honeymoon that Mr. Big didn't even have the decency to show up for, and later gave us Wild, the book by Cheryl Strayed about rediscovering her sense of self through hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. Now, don't get me wrong, because I read and loved Eat, Pray, Love and Wild in the midst of my own rocky breakup, and it gave me sort of a model to follow when it comes to rediscovering your sense of self and agency and picking up the pieces of your identity post splitting up with someone, which can be a really hard thing to do, whether it's a midlife crisis or a quarter life crisis that you're facing. So I'm not one to poke fun at that whole genre, although some critics totally hit the nail on the head when they point out the underlying privilege involved with being able to walk away and rediscover yourself over the course of a few months of travel. Personally, I could never have walked away from getting a steady paycheck for that long because frankly, I got bills to pay. Student loans, anybody? Yeah. Oh, but I want to go discover myself in Bali, India, and Italy for 3 months. How does that sound, Mom and Dad? No. Stop whining, you narcissistic millennial, and get to work and get a paycheck. But here's my beef with the whole Eat, Pray, Love model. Is heartbreak really necessary to precipitate a journey of self-discovery? Is travel really all about fleeing our current circumstances to seek refuge from reality? I sure hope not. That's what gets me down on this whole idea that travel and self-discovery are only luxuries that can be justified once you've hit a point of total burnout, heartbreak, or, as this great piece in the Atlantic magazine points out, as a way to take a break from the endless cycle of job hunting in the face of our still uncertain economy. So tell me this, why do you travel? Have you recently planned a trip, or are you thinking about doing so? What spurred that on, and what do you hope to gain from the experience? Time and again, women cite travel and adventure as sources of self-discovery and confidence. Perhaps that's why our generation is making travel more of a priority than generations past. The United Nations estimates that nearly 20% of all international tourists are young people. That's over 200 million travelers each year. And it's estimated that we're generating over $180 billion in tourism revenue, which is up by 30% since 2007. But despite our generation being all gung-ho on travel, the idea of women traveling solo or without a male companion still seems to raise some eyebrows and raise a little bit of suspicion. It's a phenomenon that Caroline and Kristen over at Stuff Mom Never Told You covered in depth in one of their recent podcasts called Women's Wanderlust. They highlighted this weird reality. When women travelers are victimized, they're sometimes seen as being at fault, like, what was she doing out there all alone anyway? Who gave her the idea to hike the PCT on her own? What was a pack of 20-something-year-old women doing backpacking through Europe without a man? That whole question of what was she thinking is just a slightly veiled form of victim blaming that's still far too common today. That underlying sense of suspicion is something that our very own Bossed Up bootcamp alum Taylor encountered when she went traveling abroad alone for the first time. In her recent Fierce Friday interview with me on the Bossed Up blog, she said, "Frankly, I thought picking up and traveling abroad was this unattainable, financially reckless thing that only other people could do. It's not something my friends were doing, and so I just sort of stifled that desire while pursuing my career. I have a stable 9-to-5 job at a major think tank that I love, after all. I wasn't gonna quit my life and go on some eat, pray, love world tour. And despite that sense of sort of going against the grain, Taylor found her trip to be incredibly transformative and empowering. And when she returned home, not only did she return home to a raise in her job, but she also immediately booked her next trip. Because despite this whole eyebrow-raising suspicion that sometimes women travelers encounter, a 2002 study found that solo women travelers found their experiences to be far more empowering than terrifying. Even though pick up any travel pamphlet targeting women and it's all about what to do to remain safe while daring to travel while female. Because that whole overemphasis on safety and precaution can actually dissuade women from traveling at all. I think it's time that we rewrite the story when it comes to women and travel. You don't need a breakup, a quarter-life crisis, or a male chaperone to justify travel and adventure. And that's exactly why Altitude 7, a digital media company, is setting out to change the face of adventure travel with their hashtag Choose Adventure campaign. They're featuring and highlighting the stories of women who have chosen adventure as a way of life. I encourage all of us to reap the benefits of travel and adventure. It's why it made perfect sense for us to launch the Bossed Up Retreat in Costa Rica this August. We're taking a cohort of ambitious women down to Costa Rica for the trip of a lifetime, focused on rest, renewal, and getting clear on what our priorities are for the boss lives that we all want to lead. As Mary Beth Bond, author, speaker, and founder of GutsyTravel.com said in a recent New York Times interview, don't let fear keep you at home. There is never a perfect time, so don't wait, go now. I hope you'll heed her advice and make time for travel and adventure this season. Share your travel plans in the comments section below and tell me what you think about all this. Do you think the idea of solo travel adventure is being totally bananas and crazy for any woman to do? Or is it something you've already done and love to do on the regular? Are you planning a getaway with your honey, with your family, or with your girl gang? I want to hear about it. And tell me what made you choose where you're going and who you're taking with you, and really what you hope to get out of travel. Share your story in the comment section below so we can continue to inspire and uplift one another, because bossed up women lift as we climb. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you and I can keep this conversation going.